So you might be wondering, what does design in Canada mean? Why does it matter? And should it matter? And to whom? The short answer is yes, it matters. And today, I'm going to tell you why. Overseas brands design scooters in what we consider black box. They're so far removed from their consumers that oftentimes they make design decisions based on market trends. They take very little customer feedback into consideration, which actually translates into some design oversights when it comes to the day-to-day use of the product. Apollo, however, always has and always will be a community-driven brand. We live and we die by the feedback of our community. With tens of thousands of riders, we have access to an extremely wide range of testers and consumer feedback. From entry-level scooter riders to hardcore scooter heads who ride their scooters day in and day out, we have access to anyone and everyone willing to give us feedback and help improve our products. We not only know what our riders want, it also means we can improve on our ideas, designs, and concepts much faster as a result of having that direct line of communication with our consumers and riders. So where do we start? Well, we start with design. The design process kicks off with an insight. An example of an insight will be, I want a dual motor, powerful scooter to help me get up the hill where I live. However, all dual motor scooters are expensive, heavy, and quite frankly, not that good looking. So really an insight here is a way of framing a consumer problem. Based on that insight, Eloi and his team get to work. They come up with a number of concepts based on loose specifications, such as motor power, battery voltage, as well as suspension, no suspension, and some high-level specifications regarding the design. After a number of designs are proposed and reviewed with the team, we make a decision about which concept to proceed with into prototyping. Various designs are proposed, and after rounds of feedback and iterations, one design emerges as the most dominant. That is the design that becomes our first prototype. Often cut by a CNC machine and built by engineers, the first prototype is not at all about the aesthetics or the functionality of the product. It's purely about getting the geometry right. The point is to build it as cheaply and as quickly as possible. Why? Because by doing so, we're able to validate a lot of the early assumptions quickly and effectively, so we can iterate from there and move on to the next prototype. This is usually where we record the first video walkthrough, and we share the first prototype, the first design, with the community for open feedback. We then repeat this process 4 to 6 times, depending on the complexity of the product. And of course, we publish every single step of the way on YouTube to share with you, the community. Eventually, we reach a final enough version of the prototype. Final enough is usually signed off on by our internal team, as well as a small group of Apollo friends, engineers and testers who are oftentimes involved in the process. Once the step is complete, we move on to the CAD model stage. This is a very important step because it allows us to run what's called FEA stress analysis. So our engineering team gets to work. They run hundreds of thousands of simulations, putting all kinds of stressors on the frame of the scooter from various angles in various situations. This is a purely theoretical exercise meant to allow us to understand how will the scooter perform under various kinds of stress. What we're doing in this process is we're really looking for points of failure. Will there be a part of the frame that has a disproportionately high amount of stress? How will the stem behave? How will the handlebar behave? What's going to happen when we've actually cycled the scooter through 100,000 repetitions of a given exercise? But it's important to note, this is just theory. And while important because it allows us to understand where we can expect failures to occur, it's nothing compared to practice. This is why we also do rig testing at the same time. Following an exhaustive FEA analysis, we put our scooters on what we call our mega rigs. Our mega rigs are torture machines for scooters. They run them at 8 to 12 kilometers per hour with about 40 to 60 kilos of bidirectional pressure on the stem, with upwards of 150 kilos on the deck while rolling over 3 centimeter bumps on both tires. That gives you an idea of how hard we're trying to break our own scooters before releasing them to the public. Why do we do this? Once again, because we want all the failures, all the potential failures to come up at this stage before anything gets released to market. As you know, all of our new models have their frames tested for 10,000 kilometers. This is a critical point for us. We want to make sure that we're designing scooters that will last for years. And a core part of that is making sure that they're reliable and safe for as long as mopeds and perhaps bicycles, which are a much more developed and established industry, unlike scooters. So this is a really good example of where we've said industry standards for scooters are just not good enough. We want to do something better, something higher, and so we actually developed our own testing benchmarks in this case. To reach 10,000 kilometers takes time. As you can imagine, rolling at 8 to 12 kilometers an hour we're looking at a few months of testing. This is a really important time for us where our engineering team and our QC teams check on the scooter every single day to see if anything happens, anything gets loose, anything gets worn out, anything gets damaged in the process. And if it does, we of course take the scooter off the rig, we analyze it, we are able to improve on it really, really quickly because we have CNC machines and engineers available on site, and then we put it back on the rig and restart the tests. So if you think about this, should there be any potential failures, we have to take the scooter off the rig and restart the whole process. This is what takes time. This is why the Pro took 3 years to bring to market, because it takes time to make something as reliable as our scooters. Eventually, the FEA analysis as well as the rig testing are complete. We believe we have a scooter that is capable of withstanding 10,000 kilometers of riding in any terrain. This is when we open it up to early testing. One full production, usually between 100 and 600 units, get produced. It's important to note that these units are no longer being produced and assembled by engineers. They're coming out from what's called the mold. So we have opened the molds. Those molds are then used to produce our parts. Unlike prior, where they were being cut by CNC machines, we're making them production at scale. During the assembly, they get put together by assembly workers. It's a really important opportunity for our team in China to get familiar with the process. Every scooter is different. They all have different component requirements, different processes associated with them, different thresholds for safety and benchmarking. All of those steps need to be learned and perfected before we're ready for mass production. It's a really important part of the process because this is when we unlock potential for scale. If you think about it, we can't make enough scooters built by engineers. We can only do this by transitioning to our assembly line. So I cannot emphasize enough how critical this process is, and this is precisely the reason Elwa and myself go to China every single time we're learning how to produce a new scooter. We want to be there on site, we want to be able to supervise, we want to be able to test and give feedback so that the scooters that come out for our early testers are as final and as perfect as possible. Now, our early access program is something I'm particularly proud of. No other scooter company does this. What we do is we take that first production run, the 100 to 600 units, and we give them away at cost. In exchange, what we're asking for is for a number of riders to put 500 kilometers on those scooters and report back to us weekly via built-in surveys or interviews with our R&D team. They share feedback about the experience, the ride quality, the product itself, the app and the software experience, also very important. We collect feedback on everything. Based on that feedback, we decide if we want to make further changes and improvements to the product, or whether what we've actually put out for the early beta testers is good enough for the market. If we deem that the product is final enough, we kick off final production and start shipping units for all of you, our customers. As you can tell, this is a very high-level summary of an extremely thorough and detailed process. There's no way I can possibly describe the entire process in under 5 minutes, but I hope it gives you a sense of just how intricate and how detailed it is. For the Apollo Pro, as I mentioned before, it took us 3 years. From the moment we sat down and decided we wanted to do this scooter to the moment it's being delivered in December of 2023. 3 full years of design, iterations, prototyping, testing, refining, and production. So when you choose an Apollo scooter, you're not just buying a scooter like anything else. You're actually standing on the shoulders of the tens of thousands of people who came before you. Every single person that had a hand in developing this product. From our internal team that obviously is very involved in the design and the development of the product, to testers who are volunteering their time to make this product perfect through their feedback and their comments on the ride quality. All the way to our Chinese team, which is working extremely hard to make sure that we're producing consistently high-quality scooters, as well as the bigger Apollo ecosystem, our affiliates, our friends and family who are all part of this process and making sure that this is possible. So you may be wondering, is it worth it? Is it worth going through the headaches and the troubles of producing something in China, but really owning the development process here in Canada? And the answer is yes. How do we know this? Because 4 out of 5 of our customers decide to ditch their cars once they've bought one of our scooters. This is the highest praise we could hope for as an electric scooter company with the mission of taking cars off the streets one scooter at a time. We're at an 80% effectiveness rating when it comes to our mission, and there's no higher reward for the work that we do. So thank you for being a part of this journey. It takes innovative and forward-thinking customers like yourselves to make this dream a reality. Ride safe and see you next time.